Well, hey, welcome everybody to Restore the Republic. I am Sheriff Andrew Ike on Richland County, Ohio soil jurisdiction. And with me today is Reeve Sheriff Adam Bonner on Summit County. How you doing, Adam?
Greetings. Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing good, doing good. Just trying to get the word out. Hey, we just had, 4th of July, Independence Day. How'd your day go?
It's just it went pretty well not being a Brit. How about you?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's a good day for Americans. It's kind of a weird situation. I've told some of my friends this day's for Americans, not really U.S. citizens, because the Americans are the ones that declared their independence, and had to fight a war for it.
Absolutely. Yeah, trying to get the information out about the sea jurisdiction versus the soil. Here you have a couple questions on the topic. We can get a little bit further into detail on that if you want.
Yeah, I got a question, and I'm wondering with this county resurgence project that's getting started up, it's getting launched. What do you feel we need to convey to the sea jurisdiction or law enforcement agencies?
Well, we need to educate them on what the sea jurisdiction is. It's typically admiralty or maritime law, which governs activities on navigable waters. It's often associated with commercial and international matters. It has nothing to do with what we're doing here. What we are doing here is in law, not at law. And the soil jurisdiction typically you'll have a group of people, that advocate for common law jurisdiction rooted in the land and the rights of living people, not corporate entities or maritime contracts. It's kind of difficult for people to comprehend because they probably have been trained all commercially and to think that statutory law, revised codes, those types of things, maybe ordinance, those are the types of things that these commercial entities enforce. That's not what we do here. We're here to uphold the public law, and we deal with living people, not fictitious entities. So that's
Yeah, yeah,
pretty
that
much
seems to be a problem, because I've talked to a few of these police chiefs and the local commercial sheriff, and they're just not understanding that these statutes and codes and ordinances that they're enforcing have nothing to do with living people, have nothing to do with anyone who is an American.
right. Yeah, those are not typically for living men or women. They were never meant to be. That's where we get into things like barratry, unlawful conversion, these types of things that they might, from time to time, find on paperwork that gets filed. But we have our own courts up now, and we don't have to worry about the rejection or violations of any type of amendment rights because, again, we're not, I guess, we're not privy to those rights. We're the lowercase p people on our national jurisdiction counties. So, but unfortunately for them, some of us have affirmations and some of us do have oaths that would make us a party of interest to constitutional rights. And I would love to have a talk with a lot of them about that because that seems to be the reason why they feel so confident in just depriving people of their rights because they're not a party to the Constitution, right? The federal Constitution, the 1787. But I think a lot of time they're even getting that confused. They're probably talking about the one that came shortly after the commercialization, where the foreign subcontractor agent, the contractors came in and they were supposed to be there for oversight while we were reconstructing. Well, the reconstruction of 1866 never took place because they commercialized us. So that's where we have a lot of contention and a lot of people arguing back and forth about what's right and wrong in our history. And that's another point of contention for me. we don't learn so much about American history in our public school systems anymore. So, you
Yeah.
got to kind of do a little bit of research there. I mean, you get breadcrumbed with bits and pieces of truth mixed with a whole lot of fabrication.
Yeah, there's a lot of education that needs to be done, even on their side more, because speaking with the my county seat's mayor, she really didn't know that there was three different contracts that were signed, that we gave our subcontractors, three constitutions, and she was talking about the one. Everybody talks about the what they think is the Constitution. I think it's the 1789 Constitution, the one that we gave to our the territorial government, really.
Right.
Yeah, and she doesn't realize that there was one before that in 1787 that the Americans gave to their American subcontractor, which was the Federal Republic. They just don't realize that there's three constitutions, and it gets real confusing, and we're out here trying to school them, but when you're indoctrinated so much, it's like we're speaking alien to them.
Well, I mean, it's this simple. You get a group of people who say, you know what, something's not right. What do I do? Next thing you know, they start researching. Then they come across these people that seem kind of, well, to me, it seemed like, they were yahoos at first. But then as I started researching, reading historical law books and reading different types of dictionaries, the Black's Law, first through like the sixth edition, and then maybe going back, I think I have all of those up to like the eighth edition. And then I go, yeah, but something's still wrong with this. This seems to be what like attorneys and lawyers use, right?
Yeah.
So then I started doing a little bit further research, and the next thing I know, I come across the Congressional Globes. So the Congressional Globes, basically, they document verbatim um, all of the different sessions that took place all the way back to the inception of our country, whether it was under the constitutional republic with a republican form of government, or even after the incorporation, where they're talking about it being a democracy now. So we are under a constitutional republic with and owed a republican form of government. So yeah, that might have went away for a little bit because of the fallout between the northern states and the southern states, and the 36th Congress, where they both just said the hell with it and they walked out without adjourning in the 36th second session. So pretty much as we're looking into that stuff, we're finding that some things were not done properly. And under Robert's rule, what that means is that technically the government was nullified at that point. It was just completely done.
Interesting.
So Abraham Lincoln, not so honest Abe, came among them, and called a special session as the commander in chief. So when this happened, it was done fraudulently. The North and South, they didn't. Confederation of States and Federation of States did not adjourn. So technically, we've just been, you know, out here waiting to just call ourselves back into session. And all it takes is people standing up and going, well, hey, you guys are calling me things that I'm not familiar with, and I don't recall ever agreeing or consenting to that. And then as you do some research, you'll find out that the 14th Amendment it's a fraud. You'll find out the 16th Amendment's a fraud, which they can see their CEO, Donald Trump, is actually kind of touching on the stuff, but maybe not to the extent I would like to see.
Yeah.
As far as taxation, property tax, licensure, registration, all these types of things. Those are not for Americans. So, we have God given inherent rights by the Creator, and no man is going to, abridge any of that by making man made statutory anything. And it really doesn't have anything to do with being aggressive towards them. We just have a right to go to some paperwork, say, hey, this is what I am, this is what I'm identifying as, and then have that recorded. for a period of time, and then we're declared as Americans again. It's that
Yeah.
simple.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I know that while I talk to these people, these police chiefs and sheriffs and city officials, the jurisdiction is always being brought up. And they're not really understanding the difference between the jurisdictions. I kind of break it down into the word, the word law, LAW. It's an acronym for the three different jurisdictions: the
Right.
land, the air, and the water. And which one of those has the supreme authority? A lot of people ask that, so you probably should know the answer, right?
Which is supreme to it or superior to it?
Superior. Which jurisdiction is a superior jurisdiction?
Well, the soil jurisdiction is, because we can deal with all jurisdictions. We deal with them because we're over them. And any other type of commercial jurisdiction that was created for profiteering or racketeering activity, well, that's not lawful at all. And we know that the word legal means the undoing of God's law. So, these are all things that can be looked up. Don't just take my word for it. There's plenty of places you can go look. But, according to the states of the union, as opposed to the federal or corporate entities, um, you know, we're said to hold superior, concurrent, and general jurisdiction over all matters: land, soil, air, and water within our borders. So, within our national State of the Union borders here on these counties, um, we hold total authority over that. Now, at
Yeah,
the state level, we have chief continental marshals that would hold, the same type of authority over the state. And then we have international business assemblies that deal with jurisdictional, cross nation state type of issues or from state to state. So that's
yeah. I
just a
think a
little
lot of
bit of that.
people get confused when we talk about state of states, state of the union, union state. It does get confusing, but once you understand that, like the jurisdictions, like we're talking about, that the county basically is the national jurisdiction, and the state itself has all the counties in it, and the state itself is the international jurisdiction.
Right.
And people just have to start realizing this. It works in a certain way, and how we get along with, when you want to do business or commerce with other states where you're crossing the state boundary, that's international commerce.
Yeah.
And people need to learn that stuff.
Yeah, there's a ton that goes into it, but it's not as difficult as, all the commercial stuff that they've put in place and all of their 88 million statutes and codes and regulations and ordinances. And they vary from county to county and state to state, municipality to municipality, and so on and so forth. But, we don't typically, we don't dabble in that stuff. We upkeep the public law that our people put into place, whatever they vote on. We give them total transparency, and anytime they get trafficked with these commercial entities and these peace officers, they got to understand we're here to do our job for the Americans who have come forth and status corrected, and it's our responsibility to protect their rights and
Yeah,
uphold the public law. And because we have to answer to them, right? It's not the other way around, like these guys hiding behind blanket policies and claiming they have, total immunity or qualified immunity. That's just a myth. That doesn't exist in our jurisdiction. If you
exactly.
traffic one of our Americans, you're probably going to be talking to, well, yourself or me, at least if it happens on our county.
Exactly.
And they better take it serious because this isn't a joke. They can be tried for treason. They can be tried for all kinds of stuff in our system. And we're trying to do things peacefully and we're trying to educate them. But if they take this stuff as a joke, then, you know, it's not going to be a joke when it happens because, we have capabilities far beyond their reach.
Yeah, yeah. I try to, convey that to them that, as an American, I'm not going to sit here and let some foreign corporations and their statutes dictate how other Americans live their lives on my county. It just ain't going to happen. Well, it's been happening. It ain't happening no more. It ain't happening no more. Well,
Right?
hey, can anybody become an American again if they want to?
Anybody and everybody. We want you.
Uncle Sam wants you, or is that Uncle Sam in a different jurisdiction?
In a different jurisdiction. Yeah. Basically, there's a couple different ways. You can reach out to your county reeve if you're a United States citizen and you want a status correct and or want more information. We have a plethora of resources for you. We have a bunch of educational materials, and we'd be happy just to shake hands and sit down and talk about the stuff. What does it mean to be an American again?
Yeah.
What are the things that you can do as an American versus as 14th Amendment U.S. citizen, where you get privileges over your rights. And
Yeah.
that's kind of like the talk that we're going to need to have with a lot of people. And we're trying to do this in such a way to where we break the ice subtly, but at the same time we don't freak people out, because I'll tell you what, after serving for almost 2 decades in a different uniform, I was quite peeved to find out what I was doing, the capacity I was acting in. And it just came as a complete shocker. So I'm here to talk to my veterans too. I'm here to talk to Leos. I'm here to just get the information out. And, speaking of which, I would like to give a shout out to my local PD for recognizing an American traveling on the 4th of July and not bothering me. So thanks for paying attention to my notices and respecting that.
Yeah,
That's
that's
where,
great. That is great. We'll get into that in another session about the traveling because, we've talked before and, there is, the Bureau of Motor Vehicles has the paperwork where you can take yourself right out of the registration. It's just an apprenticeship program. It's kind of a anti-theft apprenticeship program, and you can take yourself right out of it. And people don't understand that,
right.
I put myself a nice placard that was voted on here in our state. And, the local law enforcement, police chiefs, sheriffs, they all recognize it now, and
Yeah,
they also know that I'm allowed to do that. And
right.
there's
Yeah,
no problem. There's no problem. But, you get people coming along, they, just the average citizen looks at it and they're kind of thrown off like, well, how can he do this? Or how can he do that? Pretty simple. You just have to be an American, really.
right. Yeah. Well, I mean, it all starts with noticing. You can't just go do whatever you want. There are groups out there. There are people that act as individuals, and they go get their little private or exempt or whatever type of placards or placeholders, I guess you could say, for the Ohio plates off of like Amazon or whatever. That's not what we're doing here. Any of ours that say American national, state citizen, whatever, that's probably our people who have the proper credentials cards and the proper paperwork that say, that they're recorded as status corrected Americans.
Yeah.
And that's part of the education package that we're going to be conveying to, the counterparts that we have on the commercial side. But you're doing great work down in Richland. I'm kind of limited up here. I've reached out. I've tried talking to a few people. I had a little bit of pushback, but I don't know. Give it about another 10 months here, and we're going to go at it from a totally different angle.
Sounds great,
Yeah.
man. Well,
But yeah,
I guess all the people, they just need to know, hey, the most important thing is you need to change your political status, get out of that U.S. citizenship, become American again, enjoy all your rights that you have under God the Almighty, and start living. Start living.
right. Yeah, what I was going to say to that is, as long as you remove yourself or withdraw from that program, it says that you should probably notify the proper authorities. So what I did was, this is about 4 or 5 years ago now, I just said, hey, look, this is my property. I own it outright. I'm not registering it, so it can be an asset that is used as collateral or, binds me to any type of statutory enforcement. So, I would like to keep my property as mine, and I don't want loans given against it because whatever its value is, that's kind of what they do.
Yeah.
So I could imagine how much of an accounting nightmare that would be to take everything that's registered within a state commercially and then figure out how much is everything worth. And then, oh, okay, well, we have that much assets. Well, here's the problem with that. It only exists on paper, and the corporation only exists on paper. It cannot own real property. So, what sense does that make to let them think that on paper they own your property, and then they give you a privilege if you use the registration and get their licensing,
Yeah.
which I believe is what their CEO is working up to now with this. I think it starts on the 1st of January, where if you had a license that was ever suspended or revoked, now it's not going to be a criminal thing where they pull you over, take your auto, have it towed. Now it's like you just get a citation for it or a ticket and you're on your way. Well, I think there's more to be, learned there, is that apparently it never mattered all along. Now we're just going to give a little bit more lenience and then more lenience to the point to where the people go, no, that's not quite right. I think that should not be going on at all.
Yeah.
So I'm not saying that you should just put any Joe Schmo in a car, right, or an automobile and say, okay, go drive.
Well, that's what
Go
the testing's for, right? You take the test, you're good to go. You don't
right.
need that. You don't need that little plastic thing that says, "Hey, I passed the test."
Right. If you come through the Reeves office and you say, hey, I'm not going to driver's ed, that is a great resource. I'm not saying don't do that, but we offer the same thing. If you go through the county Reeves office, chances are we're going to have deputies that are specifically for that.
Yeah.
And they'll take you out and you'll basically learn maneuverability. You'll be able to go through the cones. You'll learn how to parallel park. You'll learn how to merge with traffic, getting on and off highway ramps. You'll be able to do all that stuff. And
Yeah.
then what will happen from there is we'll check all the boxes on a document and we'll say, okay, I'm going to give you my John Hancock. You're good to go. And
Sounds
that's
good.
it. And the other guys need to respect it. It's the
Sounds
same type
great.
of training. It's just done through the county Reeves office. That's it.
Well, I'll tell you what. We've been on here for just a little bit. I'm getting ready to sign off. But do you have any social media you'd like to give a shout out to? Get people aware. Get people on your sites.
Well, I would like to give a shout out to the Peacekeeping Task Force. Joe Hayes, Louise Campbell, doing great stuff. Tammy Healy, the whole gang. You guys are awesome. And you can find them at pktfnews.org. My Rumble channel, you can find me under Peacekeepers United 44. Not much going on over there. Been kind of busy, but eventually I'll be pumping out a couple videos a week, just checking in, and
Yeah.
of course to restore the Republic. So
That's what I did to get out there. Everybody, check out Restore the Republic. Make sure when you get on our social medias, make sure you comment. Make sure you ask questions. Subscribe. We need it. We need to get the word out. We have to do it.
yeah,
But that's
push
about it,
button.
Adam. So I guess I just wanted to say in closing that no one's coming to help us. No one's coming to save us. You got to stand up and declare yourself as American and do it yourself, right?
Absolutely. Know who you are. Stand in your square. America, baby.
All righty. Hey, we'll catch you next time, everybody. Have a good night. See you, Adam.
Later. Have a good night.